Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast. So today, Ryan is in as well. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Bob Melvin. The Padres have just kind of randomly hired him. Really, really interesting stuff. Was not expecting this at all. Just kind of out of the blue. So Chase isn't with us right now. I don't know if he's going to hop on, but we got Isaac, got Ryan with us as well. Isaac, you want to just go over real quick, like what your initial thoughts are on this hire?
Okay, so when I saw the hire, I logged on Twitter and I saw that the Padres hired Bob Melvin. It was shock. I was like, "What the heck?" And then I'm like, "Okay, let me see what's up with this guy." He's a 3-time Manager of the Year. Recently with the A's, as last year in 2021 with the A's, they went 86 and 76. They didn't make the postseason, but they had a pretty good year. So kind of like us, they had a fall off, but you can't ignore that he's a 3-time Manager of the Year. He's regarded as one of the best minds in baseball. The Mets were after him and Billy Beane, so that kind of says something that because with Jace Tingler, nobody was after Jace Tingler, nobody was after Andy Green. So at least the fact that this guy's sought after by another big time ball club tells me that this guy was he's the right decision. So I really like it. Like I said, 3-time Manager of the Year. It was out of nowhere. Nobody expected this guy. But I really like the hire. I think he's going to do really well for this team.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Ryan, you want to say anything real quick? I know we had a little bit of technical difficulties to start the show, but it's all right. This was a sporadic start.
Yeah, I was packing for a trip when I got the notification from Twitter that we hired Bob Melvin. So I'm completely unprepared. I'm not even in my normal setup. Normally I go record out in my living room. Right now I'm in my room, recording off my bed. But I mean, this is, in my opinion, probably as good of a hire as you're going to get, because we needed someone who, was well respected in the industry, has a track record of success, that can be a leader on this team, and at the same time would be willing to incorporate analytics that we're so far behind in. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't know a whole lot about Bob Melvin, but his track record in Oakland, managing a team that has, an annual payroll of $60 million. Mm-hmm. In fact, I just read that they let us hire him because they didn't want to pay him what they were paying him to manage their team, which is just insane. That's the kind of organization.
That's the A's way right there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They cut payroll through their manager. I mean, that's ridiculous to me. And I mean, he's been in that system for so long, doing what he can with so little in terms of payroll. I mean, imagine if, coming over to an organization where they'll spend like we're spending right now, the sky could potentially be the limit. We don't know what Bob Melvin is capable of doing in terms of leading a team that has this type of financial backing. So I'm all on board with this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So I'm going to read off just a couple tweets that came out. Jeff Passan, like you were saying, one of the best managers. This is word for word. Melvin was regarded as one of the best managers in baseball, and he's headed to manage Fernando Tatis Jr. and more. Mm. So you have a guy, Jeff Passan, one of the biggest people in terms of baseball faces in the media, and he likes it a lot. And he's a very unbiased person when it comes to this kind of stuff. This is really, really interesting. So basically that happened is because the A's are slashing payroll. That's what Bob Nightingale tweeted out. This was a guy too, when we were talking about the candidates, I don't know if you had listened in on some of the stuff we had been talking about, Ryan, but we were talking about it. It was weird because some of the candidates we loved were oh yeah, what a great move. This is awesome. And then some of the guys were why are we interviewing this guy? And it just seemed such up and down. And the good thing about the interview process is it doesn't really matter who you interview as long as you get the right guy in there. And with Bob Melvin, it seems like it is. If he is that regarded as one of the top managers, also one of the things, I don't know how much we talked about it with Ozzie Guillen, but he hasn't managed in a while. It's been a while, We've talked about rookie managers, the questionable stuff that's there. And it's just I don't know, dude. It's just surprising to me that they go out and they take someone from the A's organization when also some of their comments were not anti-analytic, but it wasn't like a huge, like they weren't really like, oh, we're going to go and adopt these like things to our organization. And now it really feels like they are. So super, super exciting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I said, I didn't know too much about the guy, but when you see that Jeff Passan is, and a bunch of other people are saying he's one of the best managers in baseball, and like Ryan said, he's been in charge of one of the teams with the lowest payrolls in baseball, and he's pretty much excelled with them. I saw he went 97 and 65, something like that, 2 years in a row, 86 and 76 this past year. Obviously had a good team in that 2020 short season, but really good past 4 years, and the years prior to that, the A's were just not a very good organization, not a very good team. So you could argue he overachieved. But let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you guys know about the guy, because we've all said we don't know anything crazy about the guy. I know he was a former catcher. I don't know where he played, but Chase has mentioned before that if he wants a manager that's not that's played the game, he wants it to be a catcher, and he surprisingly made some pretty good points. It was weird, but it made sense. So, we all like the move. We think it's a good move. The media seems to think it's a good move. He goes from managing Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Starling Marte was with him, to Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, and Jake Cronenworth, 3 Silver Slugger finalists. Manny Machado, Gold Glove finalist, and Fernando might just win the MVP along with Jake. Really becoming one of the best players in baseball, or at least at the second base position this year.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I'm pumped, dude. I'm very, very excited because like for me, like in my mind, it's about like, okay, are you gonna go and get a manager that people like and like that people regard as a good manager? Or are you gonna go hire an Andy Green? Like, and I don't mean to be bashing guys, but like that's what we were scared of. Like, are you gonna be really cheap, not go get a guy? And now they've done it here. They've done it with Ruben Niebla as well. So you are bringing in 2 guys that are regarded around the entire sport as like top of the top. And that's something that we haven't seen from the Padres in a while.
There's one more too that they brought in. They brought in some guy from the Mariners. I forgot his name, but they brought him in as what was it, like some sort of pitching development, something like that?
He's the head of pitching development now. And from what I read from, I think it was Jeff Passan, he said he's pretty highly regarded. So, I mean, that's 3 great hires right there. And, we haven't even gotten to hitting coach. So, that's the next big one. Right. I'd love to see someone, if, we're hiring that position next, from Houston, where's some other like really good organizations that develop hitters. I know the Yankees, they have a really highly regarded hitting coach that's not signed right now. So, I mean, that's going to be really interesting because Preller's trying to assemble not just, the best coaching staff for whatever manager he brings in. He's trying to bring in the best coaching staff he can, period. So,
yeah.
One thing that we were talking about that was a really, really big thing, like for us, was the first episode we made, because we've been doing a segment like fixing the Padres, like our offseason plan. The very first thing we did was, all right, at the end of the day, the stuff that matters the most this offseason is changing the organization. And I talked about it before, I like Jurickson Profile. I think he's a great like heartbeat for the team. But you sign a guy like that for $27 million, you can take that money and put it into the organization to develop players to get things like right. Because that's always felt like that's an issue with the Padres, is that they don't develop. The big one lately has been they do not develop pitchers. And it seems like they are really attempting to take serious strides. And to me, when there's questions about like, okay, does Peter Seidler really want to win? Does he really want that? Like, are they going to make the extra effort to do that? To me, this is a huge, like, yes, that's what we want. Like, this is what this is saying. And this isn't even about like necessarily like, is it going to work? Like, is it going to work out if they hire Bob Melvin, some of these guys? But it's about, are you going to try to fundamentally change? Are you going to make that attempt at least? And to me, they were definitely doing that.
Yeah, hopefully, I know he's supposed to be some big analytics guy, something like that. So hopefully he's able to bring that over to the Padres. We've mentioned numerous times before that the teams that were left in the CS series, the LCS series, were all among the top 5 or the bottom 5 in ground ball rate. They hit the least amount of ground balls in baseball. So being able to one, getting Eric Hosmer off your team significantly improves that ground ball rate. Getting Tommy Pham off your team significantly improves that ground ball rate, which it looks like Tommy Pham will for sure be gone. Who else? I think those are the main culprits right there. So
I'm gonna go with Victor Caratini too.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah, that is built for ground balls. One of those three guys comes up to the plate, and you can basically just point at the second base and be like, "All right, you're up."
Yeah,
Get
pretty
that
much.
glove ready. It's coming right to you.
Especially Tommy Pham with runners in scoring position, quite arguably the worst player with runners in scoring position. So, but back to the hire. This is huge. Niebla was huge. I forgot the other dude's name. He's huge. But this is really good things going on for the Padres. And now AJ knows. AJ has to know he's on the hot seat, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be going out and doing this right now.
That's true. That's a good point. I want to say what Marcus said right here. I think that Preller had an eye on him before the season ended. There had to be like a handful of guys that they really wanted to go after. We've talked about in the past, like one of the guys who wanted them to go after was Bochy. We didn't know how that was going to work out. We've been high on Ron Washington, but not as high as like some of the other guys. We liked Will Venable. Problem was he's a rookie manager. Like there was a bunch of guys that like were candidates. Bob Melvin was not on the list because I don't think anyone even like knew that he was being interviewed or anything. But it seems like he was interviewed or hired after the first interview. That's a huge deal. That means that they were really like locked in, like, hey, like, do you want to do this? And I mean, you steal a coach from the A's, like that's impressive, I think. Let's see, we got other couple other things.
So
Go ahead.
I see this comment right here. This is the first thing that popped into my mind was Matt Olson. I have no hope that it'll happen, but that'd be pretty cool. Like I said, I doubt it'll happen, but that was the first thing that popped into my mind.
Well, what about Starling Marte?
That too. That's right.
Well, I'll one up you guys on that. Oakland's looking to slash payroll. They got a lot of like quality starting pitchers that are going to be like $4 or $5 million. You're talking like Chris Bassett, Frankie Montas. Like, they've got some solid arms that no one really thinks about in terms of like, the trade market. But these are some guys that, if they're willing to slash payroll, get $4 million off payroll and let go of their manager, they'll have no problem doing that for a player on like a 1-2 year deal. So, that's another thing to look at.
Yeah. Right.
So we're getting a lot of comments here. Any questions you guys have, that we'll go and we'll discuss them. Who will play first base up here? That's very we don't. I have no idea about it yet. But I hope it's not Eric Hosmer. I did see someone move, kick Hosmer to first base. We've talked about that as a potential option. You move him there. You move Kim to second. Now, I don't think it's like the most optimal thing for your lineup, but defensively, that is a huge upgrade in the infield. I see someone trade Machado for Chapman. That's a hard pass for me.
One thing I will say about Hosmer and playing first base, no matter who plays first base, it's a significant upgrade over Eric Hosmer. And I'm not even like trying to talk like trash or anything. It's just a fact. If you look at WAR, if you look at production from all the players in the league, money-wise, production-wise, whatever it is, leadership-wise, everyone's a significant upgrade over Eric Hosmer. You could, like Matt said, if you plug in Cron at first and you put Kim at second, that's a drastic upgrade.
Yeah, I was reading AJ Cassavell recently did kind of like an off-season overview, and one thing he said that stood out to me was that the plan that they seem to be going into next year is they want to keep Adam Frazier and move Cronenworth over to first and, get rid of Hosmer, however they want to do that. But, personally, I think, all three of us had the same idea that I would want to trade Adam Frazier. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, if that's the direction they want to go in, you're talking about, Adam Frazier still plays a Gold Glove second base or like kind of below that level, just as Ha-Seong Kim does. So even if you do that, you still have Adam Frazier's wet noodle bat in the lineup. If he can, try to hit over 300, that'd be great. But, defensively, assuming, you can get Fernando back to the form he was in 2020, that is a phenomenal defensive infield. Like there's nothing getting past that.
Mm-hmm.
So I still want us to talk, about the hire, because that's that's a huge reason. See some people are joining in too. We've talked a little bit about it. We'll probably come back and reiterate a few things that we say. But I think this is an important topic, because what player would get traded first in the offseason? Well, a lot of it is going to become like, what does Bob Melvin think? Like, what is his philosophy? And to me, the guys that are going to be the most likely to get moved are the guys that have underperformed. The biggest guy, I think, is going to be Hosmer. Potentially he gets DFA'd. Potentially he gets traded. Don't really know how that looks. I think he's probably the first one out. Other guy, and we've talked about it a lot, Will Myers. Now, Chase isn't here, unfortunately, to defend him. But the problem with Will Myers is that he's making so much money. It's not like Will's a terrible player or anything, but for the money he's making, you can have so much there, Yes, they should trade Frazier. Let's see, I have a lot of stuff. Do you guys like the Melvin hire? We all like the Melvin hire a lot. He might not have the name of Bruce Bochy or Ron Washington. I see Oceanside Boy doesn't like it. But the thing is, like, if the league, and we don't know like a ton of him off him like right now, but people are very, very high on him. And to me, any coach, like, what you have to evaluate them on is not necessarily like, okay, what's their win-loss, like whatever that is. It's how do they perform up against the expectations. And for Bob Melvin, with what the A's work with, he does a great job. He's done a great job in the past. He's a 3-time manager every year. So that's the biggest thing to me. It's not, Bochy's had all of this success, right? There's a very good chance that Bochy had no interest in coaching anymore. And we had Bruce Bochy as our number one guy. Me and Isaac did. So like, we were high on him too, but it doesn't mean that a hire is bad just because you don't get like the top guy on your list, because the things about it, like, is that you don't know who's actually a real candidate. If they go and interview someone, like, it might have just not been a good fit. So the fact that they go and they get someone that does check the boxes, for my box at least, that makes me like it a lot.
Right, of course. I like it a lot too. Immediately when I checked his page, I saw 3-time manager of the year, and I was sold. I mean, it's not coincidence that you're a 3-time manager of the year, excelling with one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. So of course, I really like the hire. I think the players are going to respect him heavily. He really goes from one of the lowest payrolls to a top 10 payroll in baseball, with 2 yearly MVP candidates, one of the least expensive but best second baseman in the NL, if not in all of baseball. Obviously, he gets to get rid of Eric Hosmer. Will Myers will probably stay around. I mean, obviously, I'm not in too much favor of it, but Will Myers probably gonna stay around. He's got a lot of potential in Trent Grisham, and he's got really good prospects coming up with C.J. Abrams, Robert Hassel, Luis Campusano, Mackenzie Gore. So he's got a lot to work with. He had little to. I mean, I wouldn't say little. They're still a very talented team, but now he has more to work with, and I think this is going to be a really good team. I've said that right field spot could be plugged in by Abrams. There's a lot of spots that, other than second, short, and third, need some plugging in, but I think there's a lot of talent to do it, and I think this is the right guy to manage this team.
Yeah, so I'm personally, like, especially with this hire and bringing Ruben Niebla, going into this offseason, for completely putting that thought of the work stoppage and the whole collective bargaining agreement out of my mind, because that's not fun to talk about. This could potentially be like one of the best off seasons we've ever seen from the Padres organization, because there's a lot of payroll space where you can cut. Personally, like, when we're in the future going to record an episode where I'm going to talk about what I would do this off season, there are ways to get some of that, payroll taken up by Hosmer and Myers, Profar, people that just aren't really pulling their weight and are taking up a lot of that payroll. There are ways to get them off, or part of their contracts off the books. And what you can do this offseason, if Peter Seidler is willing to, put his money where his mouth is, he keeps talking about how he's willing to go up and even over the luxury tax. If he's willing to do that, there's a possibility that you can get our current payroll down into that 150 to even $130 million range. And if you're willing to go up to 210 with how deep this free agent market is, you can completely remodel this team into a complete juggernaut. You can have input from Bob Melvin, Ruben Niebla. We're probably going to see new people in the scouting department. Hopefully they continue on the analytical route. We could see one of the biggest overhauls in the history of this organization. I'm just, really excited to see what direction they're going to try to go in.
So I have a couple people asking like, oh, we just joined. Like, what do you guys think about it? I think this is a great question. What do you believe he'll do better than Jace? I don't think Justin is saying like Jace is better or anything like that. I think what he's saying is like, what's the difference? To me is the experience. That's going to be the biggest thing that jumps off the page. This guy, like we said, 3-time manager of the year, a guy that's been in a lot of deep playoff runs. The issue that we had with a lot of the younger managers, especially with Jace Tingler, where he didn't have playing experience, is that there's a lot of big questions when it comes to like, is he going to be able to make these good decisions during the game, in-game decisions? And for Jace, it was not good. Like you would see moves where you'd be like, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. And I get that people like coach on Twitter and do that kind of stuff. It's like, all right, not everyone knows what they're talking about. When it's happening and you're like, why would you ever do that? Why are you making this move? And then immediately it gets really, really bad right after. Like you're like, oh, you immediately have the repercussions of that move, of the pitcher you brought in, or of the guy that you pulled, or of the pinch hitter you brought in, or of like the substitution that you made that didn't make any sense in the extra inning games of the Dodgers, where you have a pitcher hitting after fifth every single time over and over and over again, and there's just guys left on base every inning because you didn't know how to manage it. You're not going to see those issues anymore. That's going to completely be resolved, I think. So to me, that's going to be the biggest thing of why Bob Melvin is better than Jace.
Yeah, I think he's going to do a lot of things better than Jace. Namely, I mean, the first thing that pops out is the experience. And not only that, he's actually played the game. He's been around the game for a really long time. I feel like the players aren't going to respect someone who hasn't played to the same level as them. I think he played college baseball. I don't know where. It wasn't some big time D1 school, but they're always going to respect. Everyone's always going to respect someone who's played at the same level as them, been at the same stage as them, managed the game for a long time, won as a manager. They're just going to respect him more. For anyone who read the articles from Kevin Acee, it was said that Jace Tingler had kind of lost the clubhouse, didn't know how to control the clubhouse, how to control the situations that were going on. So I think this is the kind of guy that can do that. And we've said before, AJ loves to travel, go out to the Dominican and stuff, find some prospects. And in order for him to be able to do that not correctly, but in order for the Padres to still be able to excel while he's doing that, they need someone in the clubhouse who's gonna hold it down while AJ's gone. I think Bob Melvin can be that guy. Obviously, he's won a lot of ball games, and he's been at the same stage as the Machados, Tatises. Maybe not star power, but he's played.
If I were part of the interview process for hiring our next manager, I would sit them down in front of a big projector, just like a big screen with a projector on it. And I would flash an image of Emilio Pagan on that screen. And I would say, what inning does this man go into the game? And as long as they answer anything below the 7th inning, then I'd be like, okay, we'll give you a call back. I believe that's one of the things he'll do better than Jace Tingler is I won't get to play the Emilio Pagan 8th inning drinking game ever again, which is kind of unfortunate because I do love my 394, but it kind of sucks when we're losing games because, we have a 1-run lead and Jace Tingler just has to get Emilio Pagan in there to throw a 94 mile per hour fastball right down the middle. So Tyler O'Neill can send it to, the next universe over. But on that note, gentlemen, I'm going to have to go. I got to continue packing. So also my apologies to everyone watching. I said on Twitter that I wouldn't have my Kathy Bates hair anymore, but I still do. So, oh, well, I broke that promise. So thank you guys for having me on. Really excited about Bob Melvin and, everything that's happened this week. So hopefully everything gets better. So see you later.
Yeah. See you, Ryan. Thanks
Thank
for hopping on, man.
I don't know. Thank you.
All right, guys. So yeah, we'll keep going for a little bit longer. This is an exciting time, I think. So let me get back to the comments. I kind of lost it for a second here. I see there is some beefing between Dodgers and Padres fans in the chat that is hilarious to me. But Isaac, what else? Like, what are the big takeaways that from this hire to you?
That AJ Preller is finally trying to do the right thing. He's finally trying to save himself from really himself. Hiring Jace Tingler, you got a guy that nobody wanted. When nobody wants something, it's like Eric Hosmer. Nobody wanted Eric Hosmer. Who signed him? The Padres. Who didn't reap any benefits? The Padres. So you got a guy that was definitely highly regarded around the league. The Mets were looking at Billy Beane and Bob Melvin. So, the AJ Preller, like I said, he knows he's on the hot seat. He's finally hiring the right guys. He went out and hired a guy that's highly regarded as one of the best pitching coaches, like really highly regarded in baseball. And then he hired someone from the Mariners who they've been developing pitchers quite well. I don't know how well, but quite well considering the names that they have on their roster. And then you go out and get Bob Melvin, who's really excelled with what he had. And now he has a lot more to excel with. So I think it's going to be, I'm really excited to see what it is. Neither of us expected it. Like, I'll tell you guys, we barely even knew the name. We knew who I knew who he was. Like, I heard the name. I didn't know. I totally forgot. I blanked that he was a manager of the A's just because how often do we play the A's? So I don't really hear the name too much. But when you go ahead and look at his background and everything, you there's a lot of reason to get excited.
So I don't know if you know this, Isaac. He has coached over 2,600 games.
Yeah, that's insane.
2,600. Now, he has coached in the NL before, so if people are like concerned about like, oh, how is he going to like understand like the game without a DH? Now, the DH might get implemented, so that might resolve itself. But he did coach manage for the Diamondbacks for 5 seasons as well. Was also the Mariners manager. So I think that's a positive thing there. I think this is a great question as well. What do you think the Melvin Preller dynamic is going to be like, right? So This is something where it's weird because we've talked about it before. When AJ would go to other countries to scout, it felt like there was a lack of communication between the front office and between the players. And that was one of the things that like was a huge factor. Apparently, that's what was reported. It was a huge factor in kind of like the fallout of the team in the second half. Bob Melvin, once again, I've talked about the experience being such a big thing. I think he's a great person with that experience to lead the clubhouse. And I think that's going to be the big dynamic is not necessarily that like Preller's going to micromanage him or anything, but Preller can like do his thing. Like he can play the GM role and Melvin can completely play the manager role, because we didn't like the idea that you would hear this, Preller and Tingler are the same guy. That's not good. You want to have people having differing opinions in the front office. And so this would be a big deal to me if that's something that can really change.
Right. But I mean, like I said, I didn't really know too much about Bob Melvin. All I know now is that, oh, dude, you know what I just thought of? Who's that left? God damn it, I forgot his name. Who's the left fielder we've been talking about from the A's?
Marte.
Is it Marte? There's another one, though, isn't there?
Dude, there's like a million left fielders on the market right now.
There's a bunch of them. I forgot his name, but either way, like we have 2. Okay, maybe not 2. We have 1. 2 outfield spots that need to be filled. I meant to say 1 again. I'm sorry.
Is it Mark Hanna?
There we go, Mark Canha. So Mark Canha or Starling Marte are 2 really solid options that can fill that role. It's a significant upgrade over Tommy Pham, because you really think about it, and we also have a little bit of a better chance to get him because Bob Melvin, the connections. You guys know what I'm talking about. But I think this is a big deal, especially because there's guys on the A's that are going to be free agents. Not only that, but the A's are also looking to dump some payroll is basically what I'm trying to say. Also, they're in the AL. They wouldn't mind trading to an NL team. They're not in our division or anything. And I think this is a big opportunity for the Padres to capitalize. I'm not saying specifically go after the A's. I think, you ask or you see what Bob Melvin seeks in players and in the roles they play, their positions, all that kind of stuff. You seek what he thinks. But this is like, of course, like I've mentioned before, the Padres haven't hired a veteran manager since what did I use this, like 86, something like that, something crazy like that. So this is really the first veteran manager the Padres have hired since way before we were born. My dad was like 6 years old at that time. So huge hire. The guys are going to like this veteran experience that he's going to bring. Comes from a respected organization that excels no matter how they do it.
No matter how little money they put into the team.
Exactly. Now I will say I keep seeing stuff about Dodgers and Padres. I will say the Dodgers had a really good trade deadline. They had a really good season. That trade deadline definitely put them over the top. You know, they lost in the NLCS, had some injuries. Not an excuse, I would say, considering nobody really gave us the excuse that we didn't have our top two pitchers in our 60-game season. Doesn't really count for either of us. But either way, like, the Dodgers had a good season, and the Padres made the right hire to be able to be able to compete with the Dodgers and Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts is not a good manager. I don't care what anyone says. He's just riding this talent of the Dodgers. But Gabe Kapler is a damn good manager who's really excelling with what the Giants have given him. Not only that, they have they got a lot of money to spend this offseason. So really going to be really exciting for this NL West. Going to be really exciting to see what moves we make. Obviously, AJ Preller knows, damn, if I don't do good, I might be gone. So, you know, get ready.
So before I get into this, I saw someone talk about bandwagoners. I don't know if they were talking to us, but I will never accept being called a bandwagoner. I've watched way too many bad games. I've got so excited over like Chris Denorfia that like I can't take that. So I no. But do you think he'll bring some of his coaching staff from Oakland? To me, like that, we have no idea yet. Ideally, like that would make sense. The Padres, when Jace Tingler was fired, they didn't necessarily like shut the door on all these guys. And it just seems like, for me, like, do you think he'll bring some of his coaching staff? Like, we know that some of the guys will be retained, some of them won't, that are currently there. So I saw someone ask a long time ago, is Skip Schumacher going to be the bench coach? Like, we don't know. There's a chance that they're offered a job, but that's going to be according to Bob Melvin. For the A's assistant coaches, I don't know who's like has the freedom, like, are they under contract with the A's? That's going to be the big question. So if those guys are able to leave the A's, then yes, he could very well go and get them. But if that's not the case, then maybe some of the guys will get brought back from the Padres. I think it's just a little too early to tell. I would guess that it would be like a mix, like maybe Skip's back, maybe he's not the bench coach, maybe he's doing something else. Maybe so-and-so's like, maybe some of the guys are back. But I just think, I think it's too early to tell. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the hire is super fresh. It's just happened like an hour ago. So it's always going to be too early to say. One thing I want to ask you is, so I've seen a lot of stuff like this on Twitter. How would you feel as Luis Rojas as bench coach? Because remember, I said I do not want him touching this team. I don't want him anywhere around. If there's going to be a bench coach to hire, and I don't know if he'll move away from the franchise because of how good they are, how good he's been over there, but again, I don't really see a future with him in that franchise considering how good Alex Cora has been. Will Venables, if you offer him more money, remember, he was a part of the Padres, fan favorite, definitely one of my favorites. I remember his catch in San Francisco. That was one of the best catches I've ever seen. Loved him ever since. How would you, obviously you prefer Venable, but how would you feel about Rojas?
So say that one more time. Who is the other option?
Will Venable.
So Will Venable being the bench coach?
Will Venable being the potential bench coach if we're able to pry him away from the Red Sox. Because remember, like, as a bench coach, you want a future in either your organization or in another one. He obviously doesn't have a future in Boston. Alex Cora is a beast. So there could be a future here considering the age of Bob Melvin.
Yeah, he's 60.
And yeah.
I think it's a great idea. And I think for Will Venable, because a lot of like I talked to one of my best friends is a Red Sox fan. And so I talked about it with him. And he's like, look, like it does make sense for Will Venable to go to the Padres because Corda's great. Corda's not going to lose that manager job. So yes, he's learned a lot, and yes, he can continue to learn a lot from the Red Sox, but it does make sense for him to potentially leave them if it's a, hey, do you want to sit under Bob Melvin for 3 seasons and then take over, whatever it is. And I'm sure that would be discussed. That'd be a big deal. And then you take over the reins there. Not only does it get Will Venable more experience, but it doesn't necessarily take him out of a bad situation and put him into a worse one. It takes him out of a good situation, put him in a worse one. It takes him out of a good situation, puts him in another good situation where he can actually become a manager, where he has that ability to have, to move up the totem pole in the coaching department. So I think it's a good idea. I saw another, this is hilarious. I thought that was amazing. So let's see, what else do we got? This is a good one too. Someone just commented, I lost it. Basically, someone said, does this mean that Melvin okayed the Niebla hire? I don't know if it necessarily means that, because he was hired after. And so, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I talked to Borna about it, because Borna made a video hey, the Padres lied. They said the manager was going to pick him. We will find out if that's the case. But maybe it was you know what? We're not going to pass up on Niebla because we think he's that good that whatever manager we hire needs to fundamentally think this way. But do you think that there's do you have an opinion on that?
I will say, I don't think it really had anything to do with Bob Melvin. I think that this was just way too good of an opportunity for AJ Preller to pass up, because he hired the pitching coach to hire, or he hired the pitching coach a couple days before the manager. So of course it's a possibility, because AJ had said, I'll let the manager decide his staff. But again, this was way too good of an opportunity for AJ Preller to pass up. The things that this guy has done with somebody that used to be in our organization, Cal Quantrill, went from, our organization potentially being a low-end 4, high-end 5 maybe, to eventually being the ace of that pitching staff, numbers-wise. He had a 1.69 ERA in a 10-game stretch, something crazy like that. He was fantastic for them. Shane Bieber came up with him. Corey Kluber, he didn't come up with him, but you guys know what I mean. Mike Clevenger, one of our pitchers. Trevor Bauer. But there's a lot to like about that hire, and even if it didn't run through Bob Melvin, there's no way that Bob Melvin would be mad about it.
Yeah. And that's also something where maybe he didn't actually pick him, but it is okay, these guys are on the same page. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for that. Another one from Daniel. AJ Preller's 3 major dubs in the past week. Yes, absolutely. God, another one. Oh, I lost it. I'm losing these comments. There's a lot coming in. But yeah, what's just your overall thoughts right now on the outlook of this team? Now that you see okay, what are they doing? And what else do you want them to continue to do?
Obviously, okay, there's very, there's very obvious ones for sure. An upgrade at first base, whether it be in the organization or out of it, is desperately needed, considering because guys, no one in baseball that's a good team like the Astros and the Braves, the Dodgers, the Giants, whatever it is, has a player that holds them back as much as Eric Hosmer holds back the Padres. Even you could even say Will Myers also, but he performed up to his career averages, so fair to say he wasn't awful. But definitely Eric Hosmer, you got to get rid of him. Another thing I'd like to see this team do is not only hire one hitting coach. You need to be able to hire multiple hitting coaches. We've brought it up multiple times. I think that would be a big deal for the Padres, considering one hitting coach hasn't worked for them lately. And that lineup was actually pretty damn good. So I don't know how they failed to live up to expectations, but being able to upgrade at left field, or both of the corner spots potentially, being able to upgrade at first base is what's significantly going to change his team. I think we have an in-house upgrade at catcher with Luis Campusano. Being able to have Caratini, and it sucks because you would have to carry 3 catchers, and I hate it. But if you have a 4-something ERA, you don't even deserve a personal catcher. So is what it is. If he's on the team, I guess you're gonna have to carry 3 catchers, because Campusano's already excelled at AA. He's already excelled at AAA. There's no point of keeping him down there. I would say you're gonna heavily rely on Campusano to be the catcher of the future, along with Nola can catch Blake Snell and Joe Musgrove. So potentially, I don't think Mike Clevenger relies on the catcher that much. So you could potentially have Mike Clevenger being caught by Luis Campusano, Chris Paddock being caught by Luis Campusano. Nola goes back-to-back days, and then Darvish and Caratini, obviously. So a lot of upside right there. I also think that in-house I've said it many times already. I'm not gonna, explain too much. I think Abrams is an in-house option to be a corner outfielder, right field specifically. And guys, like I'm gonna say, I know the stigma in baseball is you always plug in one of your worst players in right field just because they're a really good hitter. I know that's one of the stigmas in baseball, but there's no way it's just one of those things in the MLB, considering Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, they plugged in Fernando in right field. A lot of the best, Christian Yelich at one point when he was winning the MVP, Cody Bellinger also. You plug in your best players in right field. That's the farthest throw on the field. CJ Abrams throws 93 to 95 with runs like the wind, and he's going to be a significant upgrade in the lineup. If you're talking about a guy that's going to be a perennial leadoff hitter, CJ Abrams is that guy.
So talking about CJ Abrams, this comment, Abrams isn't coming up. He lost half a year to injury and is prone. I don't necessarily know if he's prone. Okay, injury prone should only be brought up if it's like, yeah, this guy has, a Todd Gurley knee. Like, yeah, that's the only way. If you have like reoccurring injuries in the same area, like a lot of people are just unlucky. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of injuries are really just being unlucky. Now there are guys that constantly pull stuff, constantly do specific thing. Oh, this guy always has soft tissue injuries in his legs. Like that to me is injury prone, but I don't think like the conventional like injury prone is necessarily a true thing. I don't know if he's necessarily coming up to start the year, but if he goes to spring training and he balls out and they're like, all right, like what are we going to do? Like we can't send him down. He looks great. They're going to bring him up. They brought Fernando up from AA. Like they will definitely do that. So I don't know if that's the case. As far as Ha-Seong Kim goes, the only time when he was hitting last year was when he was getting consistent playing time. I've talked about this with Ha-Seong Kim. I've talked about this with Jerks and Profar. Their numbers hitting-wise are atrocious. But the thing is, like, they don't have any consistency. When Jerks and Profar was getting that consistency in 2020 at the bottom of the lineup, he was a great player. He might not have crazy numbers or anything, but he gets on base, and he seemed like he was constantly getting driven in by Fernando in the top of the lineup. For Ha-Seong Kim, he's adjusting. He's coming from where they're topping out at 86 miles per hour on a fastball, and he is making an adjustment where he is sometimes seeing guys that are going like 13, 14 miles an hour faster on their fastballs. A lot more movement, a lot better pitches from these guys. So first of all, there's going to be a huge adjustment, but then to not have consistent playing time, that's what makes it so rough. And that's why one of the things that we were really frustrated at the end of the year when like it was pretty clear that the Padres season was done is why is Ha-Seong Kim not in the lineup every single day to close out the year? Because he needs it. He needs it just as bad as any prospect does. So that's where I'm on that, though.
So one thing I will say about CJ Abrams, you already said it. I don't think it's really fair to call him injury prone, considering his injury wasn't like, oh, he was running and it was a non-contact injury. What happened was, I'm pretty sure this is what happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. Him and the right fielder collided. So I wouldn't say it's fair to call him injury prone. It's just, that was just really unlucky. I know he's a little banged up in the Arizona League right now, but also, that's not even much of an injury. It's just some sort of bruise. Not really a big deal. Other than that, we hadn't heard any injury concerns about CJ Abrams. He was a baller in spring training this past spring training. He was a baller over there. He was a baller in AA. He's been a baller at every level he's been in so far. He's going to be a baller in the major leagues, hopefully, too. I think the Padres are making the right moves to set these guys up for success. I saw this comment. Let me pull it up. I firmly believe he will come up. So here's the thing. There's no rush to bring up Mackenzie Gore. Some major league pitchers don't make their major league debuts till, I don't know exactly how old Mackenzie Gore is. He's like our age or something like that, right? Like 21, 22. Some don't come up till they're like 23, 24. I don't know what age DeGrom came up as. I want to say he was 23 or 24. But there's no rush to really bring him up considering the pitching staff that the Padres have. Now, there probably will be injuries to the pitching staff. In that instance, They will have Mackenzie Gore ready. I think they made these pitching hires in the event that they're going to need Mackenzie Gore. They want to bring him up now because remember his estimated time of arrival was 2021. So he in reality he was supposed to come up last year, but you could definitely say the pandemic hindered his development, and he needs to get up and running again. And I think they're making the right hires to make that happen. 50 cents the Padres. I see they're making the right hires to make it happen. So I definitely think he's a realistic option to come up this year.
Yeah, Mackenzie Gore is only 22.
Right.
A lot of pitchers take till they're 24, 25. I know a lot of people are like really giving up on Mackenzie Gore. His stuff is still there. Like he's still like out there, like has the same stuff that he had when he was like really hyped up. The difference is the control, the command is all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I often see this. Like, oh, I'm done with Mackenzie Gore and the Padres can't develop pitchers. But if you make those adjustments and the Padres are able to develop pitchers, then we should have a different outlook on Mackenzie Gore. That's my thought at least. So I still am a big believer in Mackenzie Gore. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to be really, really big on tools. And when a player has a bunch of tools and he flashes them, like to me, that's the biggest thing. Like, do you show that you have that stuff? Mackenzie Gore does. Does he have a weakness right now? 100%. Like he is definitely a very flawed player right now, but that's why he's not being called up. So I'm not giving up on him. Even if he didn't get called up the whole season next year, I still don't think you give up on a guy with the tools like that because we've seen him flash it. I don't know. That's what I feel though. Like I feel like you just can't give up on a guy that's that good.
No.
Couple other people I want to bring up. I'm probably gonna have to take off here in a few minutes. I think we'll probably both get off in a little bit here, but want to talk a little bit more about some of these guys that have been getting brought up a bunch. I've seen Matt Olson's name get brought up probably 50 times already. I mean, talk about a huge addition. Matt Olson had over a 900 slugging last year, almost 40 home runs. He is a tremendous baseball player. If the A's are going to move him, it's going to cost a lot.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the move?
Actually, you know what? Really thinking about it, considering what we got Darvish for, considering what we got Snell, Snell kind of cost a pretty penny, I won't lie. But some of the guys we got for cheap, considering the A's are trying to dump some salary, he's on arbitration, he's going to be a free agent in 2024. He might not cost too much. I don't know if he'll cost a top 5 prospect. I don't even know if he'll cost a top 10 prospect. But if a top 10 prospect is what it takes, like a 6 through 10 range, I'm not talking top 5, like a 6 through 10 range, along with some other pieces, I'm super content with that. That is a huge upgrade. Also, if you Hosmer for Olsen straight up, I wish. If you're able to plug him in at first, like I said, a major upgrade, that's, in my opinion, that's your solidified either your cleanup or your 5-hitter. There's no debate. Like that's your guy that you plug in there each and every day, and you expect some bombs. And that's going to provide a lot of relief to the top of the lineup, which realistically could be, Trent Grisham, Fernando Tatis, Manny, or Jake. Actually, sorry, flip-flop. Jake batting third, Manny clean up, and Olsen batting 5. Like that'd be huge for sure. That's nasty. That's one of the best top 5s in baseball. So realistically, that number 1 option could turn into CJ Abrams. Also, with the DH being implemented, we're hoping Nelson Cruz can come over and hit 35 plus bombs, which would be drastic improvement over anyone on this team except Fernando. So yeah,
that's also been a guy that Tingler like really, really wants.
Yeah.
So maybe I love the idea of bringing in Nelson Cruz. So, let's just get a stopgag DH. Oh yeah, we'll just bring in Nelson Cruz. That's amazing. Got to shout out Scarmilli for a hilarious comment when we were talking about Mackenzie Gore. We can use him to strike fear into batters like Austin Adams. I think that's amazing. Oh my god, that's hilarious. So real quick before we take off, I gotta go in a minute here. Who is like for you guys, anyone listening, who is your top player that you want the Padres to go get now? Where they're at, any offseason. Let's try to make it realistic. But who is the guy that you really want to? Because it does seem like a lot of people that Olsen is that guy. But Isaac, who's your guy? If you could take anyone.
Shoot. Well, I'm trying to be realistic. I'll say Starling Marte. I think he's going to be your solidified cleanup hitter. He's going to get on base a lot for our three best hitters, and Fernando, Jake, and Manny provide a lot of RBI opportunities. I think that's kind of what we were missing, just guys that would get on base and provide our best hitters with RBI opportunities. So I think he'd be a great addition. Doesn't hit for a lot of power, but neither did Adam Frazier when you traded for him, and that was definitely a pointless trade. So I think Starling Marte would be a really, really optimal option for this team.
I mean, I like Starling Marte a lot. I think he's one of those guys where like he would be an amazing addition, but I think the number one thing that the Padres can do is go and get a guy that's a power bat. So I'm not going to take him. Don't get me wrong. If Starling Marte is a Padre, I'm going to be so hyped.
Right.
I would say Josh Bell. I think Josh Bell, and we've talked about it. Don't think it would be very expensive to make a trade for him. Maybe you have to, outbid a couple other teams. It's worth it, in my opinion. If you look at his baseball savant numbers, he is really close to where Manny Machado is. And go look at Manny Machado's baseball savant numbers. There is a lot of dark red in that. So that just speaks to how great of a hitter he is. Not to mention, good first baseman. He can also get plugged in at second base. Not like the Padres need a second baseman, but he's a guy that also does have that positional versatility, which AJ Preller loves. I think he is the number one trade candidate for the Padres. I see a lot of other really good answers here. Marcus Stroman, Castellanos. I do like Castellanos. Don't get me wrong. I don't know how realistic that is, because he might get a bag. Like he might get a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Pham, Haas, Profar, Pagan, Frazier for Ohtani. Send it. I'm all for it.
You got nothing to lose. Screw it.
Yeah, I think with all that said, I think I got to take off. Isaac, are you staying on? Are you taking off too? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm gonna take off right now.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming on. It was really fun to have like 100 people in here. If you guys want to go, like me and Isaac go live on Sunday mornings from like 9 to like almost 10 right before football talks. We talk about the Padres. We really just talk about whatever questions are there. Also talk about the NFL a little bit. But thank you all for joining. Really, really fun time having everyone on. I see that Oliver just joined. Yeah, you can rewatch the stream, but we're taking off. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.